Okay, guys. So this was a really fun talk to put together, and I'll kind of share a little bit about like my journey because a lot of this has been a lot of my journey of learning. And for me, I'm always looking for the most holistic way to take care of my body. But for me, if most people know, if you don't know, like grew up super active, was a gymnast before I played soccer, was a competitive gymnast before I got into soccer, played college soccer, semi-professional soccer, got into marathon training. And by the end of my 20s, my body had completely fallen apart. I literally exercised myself to death because I was so ADHD and I just would go, 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 that I did not have the diet to keep up with it. And I end up having, I just, yeah, in about a year and a half period of time, I had bronchitis, pneumonia, and then cancer. And I dealt with a cancer. It was basically a virus. It just kept on attacking me and I couldn't get rid of it. And I dealt with it for 2.5 years. And the doctors were like, it'll go away eventually. You're young. And they basically were having surgery, taking pieces out of me. And I was like, I'm done. I'm going to figure something else out. And I asked them, what can I do? What is it that I can do to help my body heal? And they said nothing. They said, you're young, it will eventually go away. And I was like, well, I know there's things that I can do, and I know there's foods that I can eat. And if you looked at me back in those days on like my diet, it was absolutely horrendous. A lot of pastas, processed foods. It didn't really matter what I ate for the most part, because I looked fit, but inside my body was dying. And so for me, when I went through this journey of just learning about some of the things that we're going to be talking about today, it really was a blessing. I think of it as a blessing now. It wasn't a blessing at the time, but I feel like it was a blessing now because it made me realize at a younger age, I was able to make some changes and to get some pretty quick results through diet, and some other things that we'll talk about, that it helped me, I think, just feel better and age better because of some of these things. So that's some of the things that we're going to be talking about. We'll get into a little bit on hormones and things like that because there's a lot of confusion and stuff around that as well. So let's get started. So a little bit about the kind of the state of our health. It's really sad, but just to give you a little bit of statistics, 2/3 of all the people on this planet will prematurely die from an avoidable disease. And this is avoidable. Most of the diseases that we get in this country really could be avoided. So diabetes, total lifestyle change, not type 1, but type 2. They used to call type 2 diabetes adult onset, but they can't even do that anymore because kids are getting it now. And it literally is a diet related thing that needs to be addressed. Heart disease, there's a lot of things you can do with heart disease too, that a lot of the stuff could be prevented. And then some cancers as well. There's a lot of things from a diet perspective that you can do to help your body not get some of the common cancers that we get. Now, some things there's just no rhyme or reason, don't know why. There's a lot of unknown out there. But when you really look at like the core group of what actually really happens in this country, a lot of it can be prevented through diet and lifestyle changes. They did, they used to say, there's a like research that was done where they pulled this guy over. And if you've never read the book called The China Study, it's super fascinating, interesting. At least I think it is. But it all started because they had all these different diseases based on these different cultures in China. And they went over there to go figure out like, oh, wow, these people ate this and this is what's happening to them. But they were not getting the same diseases as what we were getting in the United States. And so they went and took someone from China, moved them over here, started giving them our diet, eating our diet, and they got the same diseases that we got over here. And so there's just a lot of things that we can do, and we're going to talk about some of those things. So in America, for the first time in a century, life expectancy is dropping. So actually, we're dying earlier than we should be dying. And our kids aren't going to live as long as we're going to live. And I can see it every day. I mean, I can know when me growing up as a kid, we did not see as much overweight kids at all as we do right now. And it's really sad to me. And a lot of it could be stopped from just education, which needs to happen, I think, in school systems, or even within communities, because there's a lot of things that we can do to, there's just, we're on the go, 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 go. A lot of fast food. We didn't have nearly as much fast food in this country as when I was growing up compared to what's happening now. For me, when I was growing up, fast food was a treat. Like, we weren't allowed to go to McDonald's. It was literally a treat. And there's people that go and are through the drive-through every single day, which is really sad to me. There's another movie out there, if you haven't seen it. I can't remember the name of it, but it's on basically a guy who went and ate McDonald's meals and if he was asked to supersize it, supersized everything. But you can kind of follow his journey, and his body almost shut down doing McDonald's breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a month. It's pretty crazy. Interesting movie if you want to check it out. So in the US, we use the hope for health. Like, I hope I don't get anything. I'm going to do all of the testing and hope they don't have anything, but all the money lies in waiting for us to get sick versus getting paid to heal you, which is way less expensive. And so, ineffective. And so that's kind of where we are, the state of our healthcare system right now, is that we are waiting for and treating sickness versus actually doing things to help prevent disease. Yeah, it is called supersize. So how do we fix this? It's not by trying to prevent death. It's really learning how to live. And that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. So living a healthy lifestyle is how we look and feel younger, but what does that look like? And some of the tips that I'm going to be sharing are probably a little unusual. You wouldn't think about it, but really they're big pillars of health and are really important. So let's get started talking about the 10 lifestyles. So tip number 1, community. Community is so important. It really is one of the big pillars of health, and you can see what happens when community is kind of taken away. And I think you could see that with COVID, where you couldn't get family members to go into nursing homes or doing anything where they could actually be around people. They were so secluded. And then what happened with that? Like, we had clients that literally that were very old, and we still came to their house and actually trained them, and they told their family, nope, I'm not going to give this up. Like, I need to exercise. I want to be around some people. Like, I would rather go out with people and enjoying my life versus being secluded and not doing anything. And so in the US, we have a loneliness epidemic. And again, they say, like, loneliness can cost you 15 years of your life. And, support from family, friends are a big part of the community, a big part of pillar to health. And when you see people that are alone, you can see kind of what can happen, within, if they don't have anyone and they don't have that support system. A big thing. So there's one of my friends, he was a Marine, and he now is like helping Marines kind of get back into the, like, reintegrating into society again, essentially, is what he loves to do. And I asked him, how is it that some people can integrate and be fine and others can't? And he says it all comes down to family. So when you have, my dad was in the Army, and I'm like, he saw some bad things and he doesn't talk about it, but he lived a relatively normal life. But he also came back to a big family and a support system, where some people get into the Army because they have no one, and that is their support system. And when they get back reintegrated into life, they can't. And so then we have a lot of issues with homelessness and all these things, because there is no support system around them. So it's really, really important to have a community, a group of people that you share similar core values with and interests with. Tip number 2, this is my favorite. Always have fun. It is important to have a positive outlook on life. And sometimes you have to train yourself to do this. And there's been times when I had some low points in my life, and if anyone's around me for any length of time, usually I'm the upbeat, positive, always look on the positive side of things, because I always feel like if something doesn't go right, well, you're either learning or it did go right, and it's like, great, it worked out the way it was supposed to. Either way, it's a win situation because you're always going to be learning something in the situation. But there's been times in my life where I had hit some low points, you know, when my dad passed away and where I was working was just like, just so drained. And it was impossible to do everything that they were asking me to do. And so I got to the point where I literally was negative, and I can remember sitting on the bed going, I'm going to get out of this. I know I'm going to get out of this, but I didn't know how I was going to get out of it. And I literally had to go and train myself to be positive again. So I started journaling every day and writing things that I was appreciative of. And it was really hard at the beginning. I could barely write anything down. I'm like, it's so stupid. I could go off lists and lists and lists, you know, today, but it was really hard for me to write things that were really positive in my life that I was very thankful for. But I did it every day, and then eventually it started training my body back again to being very thankful and appreciative for what I have. So you want to live life as if it's going to go great. I always say, like, if something goes wrong, great. If something goes right, great. It's not going to affect me either way. I'm going to be learning something. It's either going to, I've learned something, I finally have cracked the code, or I need to continue to learn something. I need to continue to do something different. I need to look at life in a little bit of a different way. And so that's ultimately, for me, it's always a win-win. And whenever I've had dark times or like that have happened to me, like, why me? Like cancer, why me? Why me? Like, I'm like healthy, I've been an athlete my whole life, like, why me? When I've come back to realize on some of those things, it actually has changed my life for the positive. And so now when anything massive happens or whatever happens, I'm always looking at, like, what am I supposed to learn from this? And then that's kind of what I take from life. So enjoy the present. Too often we live in the past. This is what creates a lot of depression, or we live in the future, which creates a lot of anxiety. And it's the fear of, I'm not sure what's going to happen, and I can't control all this. That it creates a lot of anxiety. I know when when my dad passed away, and I was just super overwhelmed with everything, I had a lot of anxiety for the first time. Not part of my DNA. But I literally, like, if something was put on my schedule, I literally be like, have almost a panic attack because I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. But that's the fear of the future of, how am I going to live this way? And what can I do? You know, once you start learning what you can do to control some of these things, to get your life where you feel like you can control the things that you can control, then a lot of that can go away. You got to have a sense of purpose. Doesn't matter if you have like a ton of money. There's people that have a ton of money and think that that's going to make them happy, but they have no purpose in their life. And honestly, we have to have some version of purpose. Otherwise, we just kind of live life and we're not happy. And some people will go after things thinking, when I do this, it's going to make me happy, when in reality, you've got to get that internally within yourself. You got to be happy within yourself and grateful within yourself. Otherwise, you will be driving yourself crazy. And always keep your mind and body engaged. It's always important. You know, if you're getting to where you're gonna retire or not work anymore, well, go in and do something, volunteer, do something that's going to give you some purpose and some fun, where you're still staying engaged. Okay, tip number 3. This is a big one: diet and oxidative stress. That's what we're going to talk about. So, what are some of the causes of oxidative stress? What can happen, and this is like a very simplistic overview, is like, when we breathe in oxygen, we have to breathe in oxygen in order to live. It's like, if we don't have oxygen, we don't live. And what happens is when we breathe in this oxygen, we actually use it, and the byproduct of us using it can produce some oxidative stress or free radical damage, essentially. And so there's other things that also can produce oxidative stress and free radical damage. And those are things that aren't healthy for us, like smoking. You're inhaling smoke, which is going to produce some damage in our body. Alcohol, pesticides, exposure to toxins, inadequate intake of fruits and vegetables. We're going to talk about that here in a second. Contaminants, excessive exercise. You wouldn't think this, but this is why my body fell apart, was because when you exercise as much as I was with all the soccer that I was playing, you're breathing in even more oxygen. So that's going to be breaking your body down even faster if you don't do stuff that's going to combat that oxidative stress. And we're going to talk about what that is. So lack of good nutrition, fast food, our body doesn't recognize fast food, processed foods, medication and treatments, air and water pollutants, chronic stress. These are all things that can produce oxidative stress in our body. And we've got to do things to offset that. So oxidative stress is the big culprit that leads to disease. So if we want to find the fountain of youth, a big part of it is reducing the oxidative stress or doing things that will combat the oxidative stress. Because when we look at stuff like skin, aging is oxidative stress. Like that's what just happens is as we get older from breathing all the oxygen in, we start getting more wrinkles. If you smoke, you're just putting in more oxidative stress, and you can see someone that smokes because their skin is even more wrinkly. You can see it on anyone. So it's kind of like if you have a piece of fruit out and you keep it out within like the refrigerator and you just sit it out, eventually it starts wrinkling up because that's a part of the oxidative stress from the oxygen that is around and surrounding it. Same thing with like kidneys, chronic kidney disease, renal disease. These are all variations of oxidative stress, joints, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, lungs, asthma, COPD, allergies, brain, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, immune system. I mean, I can keep on going on and on and on. A lot of these are oxidative stress. Now, what affects your body is going to be completely different than someone else's body. There's always the weakest link of what happens. And that's where the whole DNA makeup comes into play. So my body is made up very different than other people's bodies. So what oxidative stress is going to affect me is going to be very different than how it affects someone else. But the good news is that there's a lot of things, even within like our health, that is really linked together. And when you can get to someone that understands how to put all the pieces together, then it is much better, because what we do in our healthcare system is we will treat that symptom with that drug, and we treat that symptom with that drug, and we treat that symptom with that drug, versus going, okay, these are all the things that are going on. How can we get to the root cause of that, so then we can start seeing all these things get better. So what are some things that we can do to reduce this oxidative stress? So this is like an apple. You cut it open. On the one side is brown. That's the side that is oxidative, that shows oxidative stress. On the other side, you do some lemon juice, which is basically antioxidants. Anything that comes from a plant, for the most part, are antioxidants. That's very protective. That's protective for the body. So when you look at what's going to combat it, antioxidants are going to combat the oxidative stress, and antioxidants you get from plants. And this is why plants are so important, is because all the plants have all the different phytonutrients that our body works together to start reducing that oxidative stress. And if you can reduce it with your plant intake, then it's going to help you not age as fast. Now, eventually you just can't eat enough to be able to do it. But the more you can start early at doing some of these things, the longer it's going to take you to age, which diet is really huge. Now, there's other factors that go into it as well. But at least 80% of our diet needs to come from plants. And all plants have medicines. Like, there are thousands and thousands of different phytonutrients that come from each plant. Each color is very different in how our body takes it. And my body's going to take something completely different from a same plant as someone else's body, because your body will take what it needs and knows what it is. But when you have things that are processed, chips, love my chips still, but chips, as an example, your body doesn't know what to do with that at all. And so this leads to issues within our guts, issues within constipation, which we get into some of that a little bit later. It can create our immune system to start having issues, which then can create autoimmune diseases. If it's revved up, it can create cancers. If it's lowered, if your immune system's lowered, or you're constantly getting sick, those kind of things. The plants on everything will help everything stay balanced. Now, what about animal foods? So if you think about it, we want to, whatever animals that we're going to eat, we want them to be in their natural environment. because what typically happens is they're fed processed corn, which then makes them grow faster, which then makes them get sick so that they can basically have the meat sooner, is kind of what's happening. And so if they're eating processed foods to do this, then that's kind of what you're eating. They're meant to, like if you're a cow, you're meant to go and eat grass. They're meant to eat grass and graze. Like that's what you're looking for, is grass-fed cows, because they're going to be healthier. When they're fed with processed corn, then they get sick. Just like when we feed our kids processed foods and that's what they're eating all the time, they get sick. They grow faster, they get fatter. It's the same kind of thing that's happening. And so what happens is they have to stick antibiotics and all these medicines, and then you're eating that meat with all those massive amounts of medicines and different things that are in your system, which is way more, because they're way bigger and way more than we do. They need way more of it. We're eating some of that stuff. So if you're going to eat animal foods, make sure you're getting things that are like you're eating things where they're eating their normal environments. Same thing like chickens. If they're not able to get out and eat from the land, then we need to make sure that that's what they're doing, that they're not caged, those kind of things, because they're going to be way better and healthier for us when we look at animal foods. So if you think of, eat as close to what they're supposed to be eating is what we're supposed to be eating. Same thing with plants. So processed foods. Bad foods are formulated for you to get to eat more. I mean, who can eat just one chip? Not me. I will buy a small bag if I want it, because it doesn't matter if it's a small bag or a big bag, it's going to be gone. But it's formulated for us to eat more. And so these are the things that we're snacking on all the time. Our bodies don't recognize these foods, which is creating havoc in our gut. So when we look at like our gut bacteria that's in our stomach, the good guys, the good bacteria that we need, it actually feeds off of plants. Like that's what it feeds off of. And when you're eating a lot of processed foods and things like that, it suppresses the good bacteria, creating an imbalance. And that creates a whole lot of issues. Like 75% of our immune system actually comes from the gut. And so if we can keep all these things more balanced, then you're going to have a way more, your body's going to be way more balanced. Lowers our immune system, or puts our immune system into overdrive. So this is where I was talking about lowered immune system. You catch everything underneath the sun, cancers, being sick, whatever. That was me. I literally caught everything under the sun. I was always sick. Not anymore. To an overdrive immune system, which is when you see all the autoimmune type conditions that are out there that are offshoots of random things that you have a hard time figuring out what's going on, but doctors can't tell you. They don't know, because nothing's really coming up on blood work. And we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like later and why that happens. But so it's very frustrating because something's wrong, but you can't pinpoint anything. You're getting these random symptoms and nothing's really working, because you've got to get to the root cause of it. The food industry also does a good job of marketing boxed foods into saying that they are healthy when they are not. And you really want to make sure that you eat the parameter of the grocery store. That's where you kind of want to be, because that's where all the fruits and vegetables and that's where some of the meats, and I mean, they're all in the perimeter, and anything in the center is all the processed foods. Tip number 4, we need to eat more fats, healthy fats. Back in the 80s, they said fat made you fat, and it's kind of stuck with us, and it's been a problem. And so we started doing fat-free stuff, which meant increase the sugar, which has gotten us even fatter in a lot of the things. But fat is really is necessary. Healthy fats are like nuts, seeds, coconut oils, olive oils, good healthy olive oils, avocados. These are all good healthy fats that we need to be adding to our diet. So I'll use even like coconut milk, or even when I'm cooking, I'm making some soups, I'll do the full fat coconut milk to put in there. But these things will, not only does fat provide 2 times more energy than carbohydrates, but also I think it also helps you it helps you feel satisfied. But fat is essential to our health and many of our vital organs, including our brain, which is made up of 60% fat. Our lungs are made up of entirely saturated fat, and without fat, the lungs start losing their function. It helps protect our liver from toxins. It helps us absorb essential vitamins like vitamin A, D, E, K, which helps protects us against all viruses. And it's a vital building block for hormones. So one thing that you can do like instantly is increase the fats in your diet. Tip number 5, exercise. Exercise is key. Now, we don't want to over exercise, which can happen, but we do want to exercise because it improves our energy. We have better bone health, helps with hormonal health, improves our brain health, increases metabolisms. Especially, as we get older, there's certain types of exercises that are going to be better for us, but increasing our strength, which we'll go into a little bit, is huge. I can remember my mom, and she literally was like, I barely can do anything. She's 80 years old now, and you would never know it because she's like climbing up rocks and traveling all over the place, but able to walk and keep up with me, sort of keeps up with my husband. Let's just say that. I go too fast, but she literally was like 3 years ago was like, I barely can even like brush the sidewalk off because I'm so tired after doing it. And I said, we're done. That's it. I'm putting you into Pilates so we can start working on strengthening. And so she said, well, we'll see. And so she came twice a week. And then after about the first week, she said, I don't think I'm ever going to stop this. And the first day that she did it, she was exhausted. Like she literally barely could get out of bed the next day because her body was so tired from just doing that. But her energy levels started picking up. And so much so now that like she was thinking her rocking chair was going to come closer and closer to her, but she now doesn't even see the rocking chair anymore. And a lot of it's because she is exercising and lifting weights. So one of the big key things as we age, one of the most important things that we should be doing is more weight training. So heavier weights, lower reps. Don't make it so heavy that their form is bad. But weights is really important because the more we can keep our muscle mass, the better our reaction time is with balance, the better our energy levels are. It really is key. Increasing your muscle mass will help with metabolism, energy balance, like I just said, helps with your hormones, bone health, improves mental function. So we want to incorporate some sort of movement all day. And sometimes when people just don't even have a chance to maybe go to the gym, if you go and you look at some of the cultures that are out there, the blue zones, and you look at them, they don't go to the gym. They're not doing anything at the gym, but they're doing things every day in life, whether it's making a garden and they're out there and they're digging and they're on the ground and they're standing up. You have like the Asian culture that literally sits on the ground because that's where they eat, on a pillow. So they're having to sit on the ground and get up and get on the ground and get up constantly. So incorporate some of these things. Skip the elevator, take the stairs, park farther away. Usually can't even find a parking spot close up. So park farther away and walk so that you get more walking in. Get up off the floor daily. These are things that you can just even incorporate into your life that will help you keep some of that strength up. One of the things that I love is adding yoga. And the reason why I love yoga among lifting weights and those kind of things, but yoga really moves you around in all different directions that we're just not used to moving into. And so in life, as we get older, what we do is we sit and we stand and we walk and we sit and we stand and we walk and we cycle. We're always in the same movement patterns, and our joints are meant to move in all different directions. And one of the things that happens is that our joints will stiffen up, not because we're getting older, but because we're just not moving the joints. We're moving them in one plane and that's it. And so one of the things that I love is that you can do a lot of things with yoga because you're twisting and you're extending and you're bending and you're moving in all these different directions, which keeps your joints flexible, which then can keep your muscles flexible as well. And the more you can keep that flexible, the better you are going to feel. You can literally add years by keeping your body more flexible. Working out in a heated room is also something that you can do. So if your joints are a little bit, you get stiff or, it might hurt a little bit. A lot of times, if you can get into a heated room, things will loosen up much quicker and you can move farther into different positions. It actually feels really good to the joints. So there are a lot of places now that actually do it, which is amazing. Like if you go to a lot of gyms or even like privately small gyms, They're even doing exercise classes in heated rooms because their joints will feel better, their muscles feel better, they can move more. If you can move more, you'll feel better. Tip number 6, hormonal health. Oh, this is horrible. Been through it. It's just kind of what happens. What we get from like doctors is that's just what happens as you get older, whether you have kids or not. So, you know, they don't really give you a lot of solutions other than let's go put you on some hormone replacements or things like that. Things that happen with hormones as we get older is you know, when your hormones are out of balance, mood swings can happen, hot flashes happen, midsection weight gain happens, brain fog, fatigue happens, lack of sleep can happen, leaking, uterine prolapse. We're not going to be talking about those today, but those are also happening that also can be resolved with a good physical therapist. It's not something you have to live with, or that's what happens as you get older. So I wanted to keep it in this presentation. But common causes of hormonal imbalances, it's not usually just one thing. It's usually a lot of other things, such as low thyroid function, blood sugar issues will cause hormonal imbalances, increase in cortisol, especially when it's chronic, increases hormonal imbalances, gut issues and constipation will create hormonal imbalances. You have to get to the source of the problem to get your hormones back in balance. And if any of these are off, and aren't in balance, you could be getting some hormonal symptoms. I can tell when something's off because I will notice symptoms immediately when I don't have any symptoms. So if my blood sugar is off a little bit, I can tell because I shouldn't have been eating what I was eating and I did it for too long. I can get hot flashes, but if I get my diet right back into check and my blood sugars go back to normal, they're gone. Don't have any issues. A lot of it can be things that can be out of balance, which is great news because we can actually do something about it. But these are things that you don't always hear from doctors. They're quick to go and looking what your hormonal levels are, and then going, okay, let's go balance them with synthetic hormones or whatever they do. You can do a lot of things with diet and looking at your blood work from this perspective to get help. So gut health and constipation are huge with hormonal health. And the reason why is our liver is a hormonal clearinghouse. So our hormones get cleared through the liver and it goes into our gut. And then that's where, you know, the liver is supposed to be pulling out all the toxins and different things. And when the liver's not functioning very well, that's a problem as well. But then we're supposed to be able to, in our gut, it's supposed to poop out so that we clear it out. But if we're constipated, it's a bad thing for many reasons, but one of them is what happens is the estrogen stays in the gut and it becomes very toxic. And when it stays in the gut and it becomes toxic, it can get reabsorbed in the body. And that creates a lot of hormonal imbalances. It creates estrogen dominance. It can create PMS, heavy, painful periods. It can create all sorts of things. So constipation is not good, and you really need the liver and the gut to be working very well together to clear things out. Otherwise, you will have issues, not only from a hormonal state, but also from other things. Impaired thyroid also can lead to constipation issues. So again, if you're looking at things, having people look at all the different ways that could be off, that could be creating some hormonal issues. I can tell you when my body's off, I don't get sleep. It's my first sign now that I know that something's off. Like one night sleep, whatever, it's random, it happens. But when it starts happening more regularly, my body's out of balance and I have to go back to what I know I'm supposed to be doing that I don't do because I'm like all my patients. When you feel good, you kind of like, oh, I can slide. It's human behavior, but I know when I'm out of balance because sleep is one of the first things that goes for me. And there was a period of time when I had to get my body back into balance where my sleep was horrible. I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I don't anymore because I have everything back into balance. So it's possible to improve your sleep. It's possible to get things in balance. Tip number 7, drink water daily. And it needs to be every day. It's something that we don't do a very good job of overall. It helps clear out the toxins in our body. It helps with constipation. It helps improve body temperature. It really helps improve skin health and fine lines. I can tell when I'm dehydrated and I get pissed off at myself because I can see it in my skin. Because our skin is one big, like when it's hydrated, it's going to be more full. When it's not and it's dehydrated, what happens? Our skin goes and sucks in, and you can see the fine lines and wrinkles. So when you can improve your skin health by drinking a lot of water, not a lot, but normal amounts of water, improves our joints and makes them feel better. I can also tell this when I'm dehydrated, my joints do hurt a little bit more. And it helps improve sleep. So how much should you drink? Really around 80 to 100 ounces per day overall as a female. I know they say it needs to be half your body weight in ounces, but I really think it's a little bit more than that to help detoxify the body. So I always carry water bottles around with me, mostly so I know how much water I've drinking, how much water I haven't drinking that I need to drink. When you start drinking water, what's going to happen is you're going to go to the bathroom more often until your body adapts. And then you won't notice that you'll go to the bathroom as much. If you drink a lot of water in the evening because you forgot during the day, you're going to wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom because it's going to process when you go to the bathroom. If you kind of drink consistently throughout the day, for the most part, you're going to go to the bathroom normal and you're not going to wake up. Even if you wake up once at night, it happens. You start waking up more than once at night, then you either need to adjust your drinking schedule or drink more in the morning and then a little bit less as the day goes on. Tip number 8, chronic stress. Chronic stress will hit your weakest link. It will age our body tremendously. I mean, if you go in and, I mean, here's a perfect example. You go in and you look at the presidents and you look at them when they first started presidency and they look at when they exited presidency, it looked like they aged by 15, 20 years. It is all the stress from that job. You cannot pay me enough to do that job, but it's what can age us. And so it wreaks havoc in our body. It can create a lot of gut issues. Overall, the American exceeds the global average by 20% when it comes to stress. 55% of Americans are under chronic stress. And so what are some things that you can do to combat some of this? And some of this I've had to go through and kind of figure out, because some of it I'll create my own stress for myself. Some of it you can't control. And there are things that I couldn't control when I had chronic stress when my dad passed away. I couldn't control my job and what they were asking me to do. And it was an insane amount of work. So I was like, peace out. I'm going to go create how I want to work. And I'm going to do that. Luckily I could do that, but there are things that you can control. And so when I look at things like, what are the things that you can control, and stop stressing over the things that you cannot control. So I will have a conversation with my husband because he'll complain about the government and all those things. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But, honestly, I can't control what they do and they don't do. I only can control how I can respond to a situation, or how I can respond to like what we can do now to keep our situation the way it is. Like I can control that. I can't control what happens in Congress, or if you get around someone that's a super negative person and they just are always like, just bring you down. You can control how you respond to that person. You can control not to be around that person. You can control saying like, okay, you know what? It's a family member. I know how they're going to respond. I know what they're going to do. So my expectations for what I want them to do is set so low that it doesn't matter. And so you have to kind of go at life kind of thinking about this, because otherwise everything's going to drive you bananas. Other things that I'll say is stay off social media. Oh my gosh, social media is like one of the worst things. I mean, I love it from a perspective that I love seeing my friends and their family. It's almost honestly how I keep up with people, but it's horrible in the sense of what it can be used kind of as a weapon. And the news is always doom and gloom, because in order for them to sell anything from an advertiser's perspective, they've got to take worst case scenarios so that you can get a response to it. And if it happens to you, just turn off the news. You'll live a much peaceful, a much happier life. Tip number 9. So aches and pains, it's not arthritis. Oh my gosh, we hear this all the time. I'm going to share this video with you. And I want you to comment in the comment section if this scenario is a similar scenario that you've been through. I literally laugh every time I listen to it. I actually, one of the patients here, I shared it with her today, and we were like almost in tears laughing. But anyway, is this your experience? Because this is what happens in our healthcare system, literally to a T.
The doc, guess what? They don't try to fix anything anymore. They stop trying to fix shit. When you get to be 40, they just go, yeah, it starts to happen. They don't care. I went to the doctor because my ankle hurt, right? Now, if you're 20 and you have a bad shoulder, the doctor will reconstruct your shoulder through miracles of modern science. He'll take your ear and make a shoulder out of it. It's weird. But when you're 40, they just give you no options. They don't care. I went because my ankle, like I was limping for like a month out of nowhere. And the doctor, he brings me and he shows me an x-ray of my ankle. He's like, yeah, your ankle's just worn out. I was like, what do you mean, I injured my ankle? He's like, no, it's just shitty now. You just see that dark area? Ugh, it's all hardened. Yeah, they get like that. They're not good anymore. I was like, well, so just goodbye? Nothing? Is there nothing? You just, nothing? There's no, it's like an incurable shitty ankle. That's it. And he goes, well, there's things you can do. You can stretch. For a half hour a day, you should stretch your ankle. I was like, how long will that take to fix it? He's like, no, you just do that now. That's just a new thing you do until you and your shitty ankle both die. I was like, dude, this hurts a lot. And he goes, well, you could take a leave. Just take a leave. You can buy it. You just take it. And you can take whatever amount. It doesn't matter. Like, don't pay attention to the dosage. Like, really? He's like, yeah, you could take 10 a day. You'd be fine. He said take 10 a leave a day. I said, I heard, doesn't that stuff like hurt your intestines? Oh, yeah, it'll do some intestinal damage after a while. But you just got to weigh that against how much you like your ankle not hurting. This is all totally true, by the way. This is exactly what happened. And at one point I was like, what if I was like an athlete or something? He goes, you're not an athlete, so no to whatever else you were about to say.
Okay, so in the comments, tell me how many people has had a similar experience like that in our medical system, because we get crazy stories all the time from our patients. Some of the things that doctors say, arthritis is causing your pain. The problem is that most doctors only have about 10 minutes to have a conversation with you, and all they're going to do is image you, X-ray, MRI. Let's see what's going on, and then go from there. And what happens is, you know, just like I say, like as we get older, we'll get like wrinkles on our face. It's kind of part of aging, and you can definitely limit that from diet and oxidative stress and kind of things that we talked about. Well, the same thing happens with our body. We get wrinkles on our bones and structures. That just happens, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have pain with that. But when you go and take a picture of it, they're like, oh, that's where your pain is, because they only have 10 minutes with you and they don't have time to really figure out like what's happening. And so this is where they'll say it's arthritis, or this is just kind of what happens as you get older, and don't really give you kind of any options. It's really common. The other thing is they'll send you to pain management, which basically is drugs. And if anyone knows anything, like you have to get the right category to figure out like what is going on. So like you have different ways we can feel pain. We can feel pain mechanically, chemically, thermally. You can have autoimmune pain, and you can have emotional pain. And the thing is you have to get the right category. Otherwise you're just treating a symptom. So if you're just throwing drugs at something that is mechanical, or that's autoimmune, or that's emotional, if you don't get to like, okay, we've got to deal with these emotions, or we've got to deal with the autoimmune and get the body back into balance, the drugs aren't going to help. The drugs aren't going to help with something that's mechanical, but yet that's the option that is always given, which is why you don't get much results from it. Like, yeah, it might take the edge off, but there's still something that's going on. So a big thing when you look at like from yourself, overall to remember is if you're not really sure what you did to hurt, it's almost always able to be fixed. Almost always. Like there's very rare that we've had people that I'm not sure what I did come into our office and we haven't figured something out. The other thing is if you have your pain and it comes and goes and it's or you can change your pain, you can make it better and worse. Those are all very mechanical. Drugs will not help with those cases. It's the mechanics. You've got to address the mechanics. Oftentimes the doctors are like, surgery is your only option. And honestly, again, when you're not sure how you injured yourself, should not be a surgical case. We had someone that literally was in our office about a year and a half ago. And we did the evaluation, having shoulder pain. And I was like, it's your shoulder's not the problem. The problem's actually coming from like your ribs and your neck, and then the way the shoulder blade works, but the shoulder blade can't work correctly because you're having issues in your ribs and your neck. And that's creating the way you're using your shoulder. I would not have the surgery just come in, but they decided, no, the doctor said you have to have surgery. It's the only way it's going to fix it. We're going to do the rotator cuff surgery. Did the rotator cuff surgery, which if anyone's done that, that's like a 6 or 7 month process. It is horrible. Went through all the therapy, did everything, was feeling good, and then called us up a week ago and was like, the pain returned again. They said, I have another rotator cuff tear. And I'm like, could you please not have another surgery? Like you're just treating the symptom of like why it's happening. And you're not addressing the mechanics of what's going on. You're treating the symptom. And so this is really, really common. Again, it wasn't like he fell and injured his shoulder. It was like, I'm not really sure what I did. I'm like, yeah, so we've got to unveil that. We've had patients say, the doctors will say, you're just living with it. You're just gonna have to live with it. And when it gets bad enough, then we'll do surgery. Literally, we've had people tell us this. And so again, this is something that is an issue. We've had patients that have told us, the doctor said, just go Google some exercises and that'll help you, which is absolutely ridiculous because what exercise do you Google to know what you need to do? So where do they get it wrong? Like, where does our healthcare system get it wrong with our aches and pains that start slowing us down and limiting us? And we start believing that it's just arthritis and this is just what we have to live with. It's because we're treating the wrong category. So again, when I talked about all those different categories, we're talking about mechanics, chemical, thermal will be like burn, sunburns, autoimmune, emotional. Like these are all different categories on how we can feel pain. And if you don't get the right category or understand which category you're in, you're basically just going to treat a symptom. And honestly, the healthcare system does not have enough time to figure it all out. You cannot figure this stuff out in a 10-minute conversation. If you fell and fractured your elbow, you can see that in a 10-minute conversation. Oh, you fell. Let's do an x-ray. Oh, there it is. We fractured the elbow. So yeah, we need to have surgery or it's going to be totally fine. But that's like only 10% of the cases that come through the office. The majority of the time I'm not sure what I did. I started hurting one day and it got really bad. And so that's typically, those are cases that you need to spend a little bit more time figuring things out. In our healthcare system, we only look at the injury one way. And what do I mean by that? You go to a PT and they only look at strengthening. So they're just going to strengthen the shoulder because it's a rotator cuff tear, but they're not going to figure out like, why is their shoulder hurting to begin with? Really common. Massage only looks at the tissue. So you're only going to do soft tissue, but you don't get into why is the tissue tight to begin with. You got to get to the why. Otherwise you're just going to be treating symptoms. Chiropractors only look at the joints. Okay, great. But once the joints are start moving, then what else happens? What are the movement habits that are creating that joint to get tight? What are you doing throughout the day that is creating issues within your life? Doctors only look at drugs and surgery. The other thing that also happens which I missed, the second category is in healthcare, we only look at the side of the pain. So in that case, the shoulder case, they only look to the shoulder. They didn't look anywhere else to see why it was happening. So you can have again, shoulder pain that comes from the neck or the thoracic spine. You can have back pain that comes from the hip. You can have back pain that comes from the thoracic spine. You can have a combination of it coming from the back, the thoracic spine, and the hip. There can be layers of things that we find with people, but we only go to the side of the pain. You can have knee pain that's happening from the hip. You can have knee pain that's happening from the back. But again, people aren't like sitting down trying to figure out these things. They're only going to, oh, I'm going to look at the knee. That's all I'm going to do. Let's just work the knee. Let's do some exercises for the knee. And that's all. Let's dry needle around the knee. Well, no, let's get to why the knee's hurting to begin with. And so this creates a lot of frustrations and making patients feel like, well, yeah, the doctor's right, because it is just arthritis. And I am going to have to slow down, and there's nothing I really can do. I guess I'm just gonna have to wait until it gets bad enough to have surgery. So there's a lot of mixed messages out there, like, oh, just, core strengthening is going to help with back pain. Not necessarily. You got to get to the source of what's going on with the back pain. Massage, stretch, lose weight. Like, these are things that are just thrown out there on like, this will help, but unless you really have a game plan or really understand what's going on, it won't. No one gets to what you're doing daily that's creating the problem. And what I mean by that, what you do repeatedly throughout the day is a problem. It can create issues. So I'll give you an example of even like a kid. There's a kid that'll be coming in, and they're a dancer. They're kicking their leg all the time. And they called us, this is recently, and I'm pretty sure I already know what's going on, because they're like, well, it's just really tight. Her hamstring's so tight, she can't even get her legs straight. And I'm thinking, that's not a hamstring issue, that's a hip issue, because she's repeatedly moving her hip to in range, and she's not taking that joint in the opposite direction at all. That creates these pathways. And then you have symptoms of muscles that tighten up to protect it, but you can release it instantly, not by focusing on the hamstring, but by focusing on the hip joint. And so things that we look at is really the whole body on figuring out what it is, and then also figuring out, well, what is it that you're doing throughout the day that's creating some of these things. So if she's kicking throughout the day, we're gonna have to offset that kicking motion by stretching her joint in the opposite direction to keep it balanced. There can be stuff that we're doing. We have patients that has neck pain, and we can tell like when one side's not moving. So let's say like the left side's not they I'm like asking, do you have a computer screen on that you're always turning to the left? True story. This happened like last week, and they were like, yes. I'm looking to the left all the time. I do Zoom calls on that screen. I go, you can't keep on looking to the left, because that joint's going to lock up and you're going to have all these issues. So you've got to move your whole chair and look at it so that you can keep the body in a better position. Or we need to stack computers where you're in front and you can stack them to where you can see straight ahead, and you're not putting your joints in these weird positions for long periods of time, because eventually your body doesn't like being in those positions and it creates problem. It's similar to like if you pulled your finger back and you held it there for 8 hours a day, day after day, year after year. When you come out of that position, it has to heal. You have to recover from being in that position. But what happens as we get older, we don't recover as fast. We go back in that position, we come out of it, it doesn't recover. We go back into that position. Eventually the joints don't like being in it, and it starts having pain and problems. So what we do repeatedly throughout the day is something we have to address, and then we have to come up with a game plan to help you combat that. So our treatment steps, the biggest thing that we look at first is always looking at mobility. And that says, how do your joints move? That's when we look at mobility from our perspective, is how do the joints move? And you have to go above and below the pain. You can't just go to the side of the pain. And I mean, sometimes you have to go two joints above. Like you can have hip issues that actually are created from the thoracic spine. We've seen it all the time. And that's 2 levels above, as far as checking the mobility, but we kind of know what the patterns are, and we know what to look like. But first check is mobility, because if you physically cannot move through the motion, then you're going to compensate, and you're not going to be able to get strong, the strength that you need, because your body physically can't move there. So that's why mobility is first. When mobility is resolved, or we don't have any mobility issues, then we start looking at stability. And that's how do the individual muscles work, so that we can see what are the weaknesses within those muscles, so that we can start creating some stability in those muscles. And then that's when we can start working on those movement habits that you've created because of the stability issues and the mobility issues, because we've got to fix those. Otherwise, you're going to be doing the same patterns that's going to create that tightness. And then the last one would be guidance and return to your activities. So these are like our 4 steps that we go through. You miss a step, you're going to be like, something's off. Why aren't they getting better? And so these are the things that we look at in our office. So one of the biggest things I would say is like, it's really crucial for you to find a good healthcare team. And so that's almost what we are to a lot of our patients, is we are that kind of healthcare team that can help guide you through things and get you to the right people that you need, because these are people that we actually have used ourselves, that we've gotten really good results when it's things that we can't actually get help from. And so really, really, I mean, for me, like I have several people that I go to based on what's going on so that I can get some information to know what I need to do next. And they're just people that are a part of my healthcare team, that I've used, and that have helped me. So if I'm looking for something more holistic, I'm going to go to Dr. Mike Smith, because he's more that holistic naturopath doctor that was able to help get my body back into balance. But if I want something a little bit more from a medical perspective, then I'll go to my regular doctor that I trust in some things, but not in other things, because I look at everything very holistically, more so than most of the medical doctors that are out there. Tip number 10, what are some other tips that can help you with your health? So if there was one type of product or supplementation that I think everyone needs to be on, it would actually be Juice Plus. A lot of times we're like, oh, we need to add this in, we need vitamin C, and we need, you know, calcium, and we need all these like specific vitamins. In reality, we are supposed to be getting our vitamins from our food. But honestly, we just don't eat the variety that we need. We don't eat consistently. And so when you're looking for that like multivitamin, something that's going to help your body with healing, with feeling younger, with all those things, this is the product that I would say would be the number one product to go to, because it is just food. It's basically putting 30 different plants into your body every single day. And they use small to mid-sized farms. This is a product that I found when I had cancer. It was actually my first step. I took this as a first step to see if this would actually help, because it was food. And I knew the research on it had like stuff on like immune function and helping it. So I was like, well, let me give it a try. And it was enough nutrition that it allowed my body to heal. And it was the first time after taking this product that my blood work was actually normal, and then my virus was gone. I was like, holy cow, this is just fruits and vegetables. Let me go and see how many fruits and vegetables I'm actually eating. And I'm like, I think there might be 3 or 4 days out of the week that I don't eat a single fruit or vegetable. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have to start changing this and start researching this a little bit more. So this is when you look at the research on it, they're up to 48 articles published in medical journals. These are just some of them. And the medical journals are actually journals that are like top tier journals. This is what actually got me interested in the product. But when you look at, they have skin health and actually improving your skin, making it look fuller. We always call it like the Juice Plus Glow. We can tell when people have been on the product and they consistently take it, because there's literally more hydration and a glow in their skin. This also helps with patients that are going to be undergoing surgery or like wound healing or things. Like they actually have research on wound healing, how it actually can help improve the speed up the healing of the wound. And a lot of it's because it works on reducing that inflammation, that systemic inflammation in our body. They have research on like cardiovascular, as far as like circulation, where people ate a high fat meal, and they basically took the blood work and looked at the vessel constriction after eating a high fat meal, and then put them on the product for 60 days, and then retested that high fat meal and looked at see what their vessels actually did. And what they found was when they did the fruit, vegetable, and vineyard blend, there was virtually zero constriction in their vessels, which is huge, because one of the biggest things that happens when people eat these high fat, like not healthy fat meals, is that your blood vessels will constrict. And if you have any plaque or anything like that, that's why people have heart attacks after some of their big meals. And so this is something that will definitely help with a lot of things. So if there's one thing you could take, I would say this would be the one thing. Now, there's other things that you can take that also help with health. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But if you're just looking for one thing, this would be it. So other supplements to consider would be like vitamin D supplementation. Vitamin D is something that you do not get from food. You can get them from mushrooms and I think seaweed. But overall, you don't get that. You get vitamin D from the sun. So it's kind of a misnomer. Like you don't get that from food as much. So vitamin D supplementation, most of us have need more of it, almost all of us. So that's something that's really important. We'll talk about some of the things that vitamin D supplementation can help. Omega fatty acids. There's also a Juice Plus product that is all plant-based that will give you the whole spectrum of omegas. When they came out with that, I was like, awesome, I'm going to get rid of my fish oil and I'm going to go straight to this and notice a big difference in my skin, my nails, my hair was less like dry. We have people that have said that they don't have as much of their hair falling out. Yeah. Awesome, Lisa. We'll talk about that, Lisa. I had no clue that you had a cancer scare. Magnesium is another supplementation that also helps with some sleep and things. So these are other things that I think are important that most people, when you look in generality, that are important. Vitamin D. So signs that you may be deficient. So you can have excessive sweating, unexpected muscle fatigue, broken bones, chronic pain, depression, feeling down. Vitamin D and disease prevention can help with cardiovascular disease, cognitive impairment, asthma, cancer, diabetes type 1 and 2, hypertension, blood glucose intolerance, MS, chronic inflammation. So vitamin D is something that should be taken regularly. Other things for me that have helped me with like my blood sugars, not that they're ever that bad, but they have creeped up a little bit. I have to be really careful because I've got to really limit my grains. Even like quinoa and rice, pastas. I love, Italian food. Have to white bread, potatoes, those kind of things, white potatoes. So those things I really need to limit because it really can spike up the blood sugar. One thing that I do that I've added to my diet is I'll drink a cranberry type juice that is basically a cup and a half of, well, it's a big jug. So I do 1.5 cups of cranberry juice, 4.5 cups of water, 2 to 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, and 2 to 3 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. And you do this before eating your meals. And it really can help keep the bloating and gut repair and really help you not have those sugar spikes because of all the stuff that's actually in it. So that's something you can probably start almost immediately. I do this now every day. I don't do it every meal. If I feel like I need to, because I'm getting a little more bloating because I've been bad with my diet, which happens, then I'll go back to doing it every single day as I'm kind of cleaning everything up. So another thing, I think one of the biggest things that's probably kept me from my skin perspective looking younger is that I was someone that as a kid was a super oily kid in my skin and in my hair. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's helped protect me long term, keeping my skin like looking younger, is because I've had so many oils growing up. So one of the things that I do, I love this little Kiehl's product. You can actually get it on Amazon. This will help with like drying of your skin. I will do the body oil and I'll put it on my skin at night just so that I can just kind of keep the oils in. So that's just another thing that I have done. So as far as the bonuses, so one of the things, and I know some of you guys are already on Juice Plus, but if you want to start any new Juice Plus products, there's shakes and the omegas, anything, I will give you a 10% rebate that you can use at our office. And if you don't come and you live I know we have one person that lives out of state, I'll give them a rebate. I'll give them a gift card to something or whatever, but you must use my leaks to match my name so that I know that it happens. And then we can add that rebate to our office. Dr. Mike Smith, I've talked to you about him. He is my naturopathic doctor. I actually the cool thing about being a part of the whole Juice Plus community is you meet amazing people that look at the body the way I want to look at the body, from a very holistic perspective. And so there are schools out there that are basically MDs, but it's for naturopathic doctors. There's not very many, but it's a 4 or 5 year program, like medical program, but they look at the body very differently. And this is someone that I personally use. And I asked, hey, would you do this for me? And he said, absolutely. I'll do this for you. And so in the email that's going to go out with all this information, there is a video of something that he did. And one of the big things that I love about this, I've actually been through his 3-month detox program because my body was out of balance. I could tell I was starting to gain weight. My sleep was off. I was getting hot flashes again. I was like, this is really weird, but I think it was from COVID, because COVID creates autoimmune storms within our body. That's the biggest thing that I've seen. And so I was like, I think my body's out of balance because of that. So I did his program and got everything back and felt great. So this program is amazing because you're going to learn a lot about your body. But one of the biggest things that happens is that you take your blood work, and what happens in the medical community is that they compare you to someone that is unhealthy. That's the blood work that we're comparing people to. So when you go in and you see a doctor and they're like, well, the blood work looks pretty good, there's nothing really glaring out to me. That's because they're comparing the blood work to someone that is sick. And we really should be comparing the blood work to someone that is healthy, so we know what we need to do. And that's what they do. So they'll go in and do a whole blood work up for you, as well as looking at food allergies. And based on what they see in the blood work, they go through everything and they start making adjustments in your diet based on that, and adding supplementation if they need to add supplementation to support something that needs to be supported. Or if they can do it with food, they'll do it with food. And so they'll take you through this 3-month kind of detox program to start understanding what serves your body and what doesn't serve your body, and just kind of seeing those changes. You learn a lot about your body. It's really amazing. So he's going to give you 10% off of that. In the email, I have his information from his website, his phone number. I have the video that he did, for me. I have that as well. So it's an hour-long video, so you can learn a little bit more about that. So that's in there. The Face Place. This place is right by our office. Really cool place. They're going to give everyone a gift bag. I have to go call them and get them on those. I haven't called them yet on that, but they're going to give everyone a gift bag. But we're going to do a raffle of everyone that showed up today, and someone is going to get a free facial. And I love their facials because it's not, they're not putting any Botox or anything. Like, it's just doing a facial to keep your skin looking and feeling healthy, which I love that. And then we have, this month is our Black Friday sales. So we basically have a limited supply, but anyone that wants a Black Friday package will be guaranteed one. These are our biggest sale of the year. So we do this every year, but you guys, if you guys want a package of anything, then we'll guarantee you having a package, even though we have a limited supply. So that is everything. I'm going to stop the recording and we can go into questions.